Hello everyone. I wanted to do a little reading today since that's something I actually like to do. And honestly, when was the last time you had someone read to you for a little while? So before I begin, it's always follow our new tradition of taking a deep breath in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 3, 2, 1. Breathe out 2, 3, 4. So this book is called How to Stop Time. It's by the author Matthew Haig. He has quite a few incredible books. If you've never read anything from him, you should. He's great. But let's get into it. Part 1. Life among the mayflies. I am old. That is the first thing to tell you. The thing you are least likely to believe. If you saw me, you would probably think I was about 40, but you would be very wrong. I am old. Old in the way that a tree, or a Haig clam, or a Renaissance painting is old. To give you an idea, I was born well over 400 years ago on the 3rd of March, 1581, in my parents' room on the 3rd floor of a small French chateau that used to be my home. It was a warm day apparently for that time of year, and my mother had asked her nurse to open all the windows. God smiled on you, my mother said, though I think she might have added that, should he exist, the smile has been a frown ever since. My mother died a very long time ago. I, on the other hand, did not. You see, I have a condition. I thought of it as an illness for quite a while, but illness isn't really the right word. Illness suggests sickness and wasting away. Better to say I have a condition. A rare one, but not unique. One that no one knows about until they have it. It is not in any official medical journals, nor does it go by an official name. The first respected doctor to give it one, back in the 1890s, called it anageria, with a soft G, but, for reasons that will become clear, that never became public knowledge. The condition develops around puberty. What happens after that is, well, not much. Initially, the sufferer of the condition won't notice they have it. After all, every day people wake up and see the same face they saw in the mirror yesterday, day by day, week by week, even month by month. People don't change in very perceptible ways. But as time goes by, at birthdays or other annual markers, people begin to notice you aren't getting any older. The truth is, though, that the individual hasn't stopped aging. They age exactly the same way, just much slower. The speed of aging among those with anageria fluctuates a little, but generally it is a 1 to 15 ratio. Sometimes it is a year every 13 or 14 years, but with me it is closer to 15. So, we are not immortal. Our minds and bodies aren't in stasis. It's just that, according to the latest, ever-changing science, various aspects of our aging process, the molecular degeneration, the cross-linking between cells in a tissue, the cellular and molecular mutations, including most significantly to the nuclear DNA, happen on another time frame. My hair will go gray. I may go bald. Osteoarthritis and hearing loss are probable. My eyes are just as likely to suffer with age-related presbyopia. I will eventually lose muscle mass and mobility. A quirk of anageria is that it does tend to give you a heightened immune system, protecting you from many, not all, viral and bacterial infections. But ultimately, even this begins to fade. Not to bore you with the science, but it seems our bone marrow produces more hematopoietic stem cells, ones that lead to white blood cells during our peak years. Though it is important to note that this doesn't protect us from injury or malnutrition, and it doesn't last. So, don't think of me as a sexy vampire stuck forever at peak virility. though I have to say it can feel like you are stuck forever when, according to your appearance, only a decade passes between the death of Napoleon and the first man on the moon. One of the reasons people don't know about us is that most people aren't prepared to believe it. Human beings, as a rule, simply don't accept things that don't fit their worldview. So you could say, I am 439 years old, easily enough, but the response would generally be, are you mad? Or, alternatively, death. Another reason people don't know about us is that we're protected by a kind of organization. Anyone who does discover our secret and believes it tends to find their short lives are cut even shorter. So the danger isn't just from ordinary humans, it's also from within. Sri Lanka, 3 weeks ago. Chandrika Senaviratani was lying under a tree in the shade, 100 meters or so behind the temple. Ants crawled over her wrinkled face. Her eyes were closed. I heard a rustling in the leaves above and looked up to see a monkey staring down at me with judging eyes. I had asked the tuk-tuk driver to take me monkey spotting at the temple. He told me this red-brown type with the near-bald face was a Reliwa monkey. Very endangered, the driver had said. There aren't many left. This is their place. The monkey darted away, disappeared among the leaves. I felt the woman's hand. It was cold. I imagined she had been lying here, unfound, for about a day. I kept hold of her hand and found myself weeping. The emotions were hard to pin down. A rising wave of regret, relief, sorrow, and fear. I was sad that Chandrika wasn't here to answer my questions, but I was also relieved I didn't have to kill her. I knew she'd had to die. This relief became something else. It might have been the stress of the sun, or it might have been the egg happas I'd had for breakfast, but I was now vomiting. It was in that moment that it became clear to me, I can't do this anymore. There was no phone reception at the temple, so I waited till I was back in my hotel room in the old fort town of Gali, tucked inside my mosquito net, sticky with heat, staring up at the pointlessly slow ceiling fan before I phoned Hendrik. You did what you were supposed to do, he asked. Yes, I said, which was halfway to being true. After all, the outcome had been the one he'd asked for. She is dead. Then I asked what I always asked. Have you found her? No, he said, as always. We haven't. Not yet. Yet. That word could trap you for decades, but this time I had a new confidence. Now, Hendrik, please. I want an ordinary life. I don't want to do this. He sighed wearily. I need to see you. It's been too long. Los Angeles, 2 weeks ago. Hendrik was back in Los Angeles. He hadn't lived there since the 1920s, so he assumed it was pretty safe to do so, and that no one was alive who would remember him from before. He had a large house in Brentwood that served as the headquarters for the Albatross Society. Brentwood was perfect for him. A geranium-scented land of large houses tucked behind high fences and walls and hedges, where the streets were free from pedestrians and everything, even the trees, looked perfect to the point of sterile. I was quite shocked on seeing Hendrik sitting beside his large pool on a sun lounger, laptop on knee. Normally, Hendrik looked pretty much the same, but I couldn't help notice the change. He looked younger. Still old and arthritic, but, well, better than he'd done in a century. Hi, Hendrik, I said. You look good. He nodded as if this wasn't new information. Botox and a brow lift. He wasn't even joking. In this life, he was a former plastic surgeon. The backstory was that after retiring, he had moved from Miami to Los Angeles. That way he could avoid the issue of not having any former local clients. His name here was Harry Silverman. Silverman, don't you like it? It sounds like an aging superhero, which I kind of am. I sat on the spare lounger. His maid, Rosella, came over with 2 sunset-colored smoothies. I noticed his hands. They looked old. Liver spots and baggy skin and indigo veins. Faces could lie easier than hands could. See buckthorn. It's It's crazy. It tastes like shit. Try it. The amazing thing about Hendrik was that he kept thoroughly of the times. He always had done, I think. He certainly had been since the 1890s. Centuries ago, selling tulips, he'd probably been the same. It was strange. He was older than any of us, but he was always very much in the current of whatever zeitgeist was flowing around. The thing is, he said, in California, the only way to look like you were getting older is to look like you were getting younger. If you can move your forehead over the age of 40, then people become very suspicious. He told me that he'd been in Santa Barbara for a couple of years, but he got a bit bored. Santa Barbara is pleasant. It's heaven, with a bit more traffic. But nothing ever happens in heaven. And I had a place up in the hills. Drank the local wine every night, but I was going mad. I kept getting these panic attacks. I had lived for over 7 centuries and never had a single panic attack. I've witnessed wars and revolutions. Fine. But I get to Santa Barbara, and there I was, waking up in my comfortable villa with my heart going crazy and feeling like I was trapped inside myself. Los Angeles, though, is something else. Los Angeles calmed me right down, I can tell you. Feeling calm, that must be nice. He studied me for a while, as if I was an artwork with a hidden meaning. What's the matter, Tom? Have you been missing me? Something like that. What is it? Was Iceland that bad? I'd been living in Iceland for 8 years before my brief assignment in Sri Lanka. It was lonely. But I thought you wanted lonely after your time in Toronto. You said the real loneliness was being surrounded by people. And besides, that's what we are, Tom. We're loners. I inhaled, as if the next sentence was something to swim under. I don't want to be that anymore. I want out. There was no grand reaction. He didn't bat an eye. I looked at his gnarled hands and swollen knuckles. There is no out, Tom. You know that. You are an albatross. You are not a mayfly. You are an albatross. The idea behind the names was simple. Albatrosses, back in the day, were thought to be very long-living creatures. Reality is, they only lived to about 60 or so, far less than, say, the Greenland sharks that lived to 400, or the quahog clam scientists call Ming because it was born at the time of the Ming Dynasty, over 500 years ago. But anyway, we are albatrosses, or albas for short. And every other human on Earth was dismissed as a mayfly, so called because of the short-lived aquatic insects who go through an entire life cycle in a day, or in the case of one subspecies, 5 minutes. Hendrik never talked to other ordinary human beings as anything other than mayflies. I was finding his terminology I had ingrained into me, increasingly ridiculous. Albatrosses, mayflies, the silliness of it. For all his Asian intelligence, Hendrik was fundamentally immature. He was a child, an incredibly ancient child. That was the depressing thing about knowing other albas. You realized that we weren't special, we weren't superheroes, we were just old. And that, in cases such as Hendrik, it really didn't matter how many years or decades or centuries had passed, because you were always living within the parameters of your personality. No expanse of time or place could change that. You could never escape yourself. I find it disrespectful to be honest with you, he told me, after all I've done for you. I appreciate what you've done for me. I hesitated. What exactly had he done for me? The thing he had promised to do hadn't happened. Do you realize what the modern world is like, Tom? It's not like the old days. You can't just move address and add your name to the parish register. Do you know how much I have to pay to keep you and the other members safe? Well then, I could save you some money. I was always very clear. This is a one-way street. A one-way street I never asked to be sent down. He sucked on his straw, winced at the taste of his smoothie. Which is life itself, isn't it? Listen, kid, I'm hardly that. You made a choice. It was your choice to see Dr. Hutchinson, and I would have never made that choice if I'd known what would happen to him. He made circles with the straw, then placed the glass on the small table beside him in order to take a glucosamine supplement for his arthritis. Then I would have to have you killed. He laughed, that croak of his, to imply it was a joke. But it wasn't. Of course it wasn't. I'll make a deal, a compromise. I will give you the exact life you want, any life at all. But every 8 years, as usual, you'll get a call, and before you choose your next identity, I'll ask you to do something. I had heard all of this before, of course, although any life you want never really meant that. He would give me a handful of suggestions, and I'd pick one of them, and my response, too, was more than familiar to his ears. Is there any news of her? It was a question I had asked 100 times before, but it had never sounded as pathetic, as hopeless, as it did now. He looked at his drink. No. I noticed he said it a little quicker than he normally would. Hendrik? No, I haven't. But listen, we are finding new people at an incredible rate. Over 70 last year. Can you remember when we started? A good year was 5. If you still want to find her, you'd be mad to want out now. I heard a small splashing sound from the swimming pool. I stood up, went to the edge of the pool, and saw a small mouse hopelessly swimming along past the water filter. I knelt down and scooped the creature out. It scuttled away toward the perfectly manicured grass. He had me, and he knew it. There was no way out alive. And even if there was, it was easier to stay. There was a comfort to it, like insurance. Any life I want? Any life you want. I'm pretty sure, Hendrik being Hendrik, he was assuming that I was going to demand something extravagant and expensive, that I would want to live in a yacht off the Amalfi Coast or in a penthouse in Dubai. But I had been thinking about this, and I knew what to say. I want to go back to London. London? She probably isn't there, you know. I know. I just want to be back there, to feel like I'm home again. And I want to be a teacher. A history teacher. He laughed. A history teacher. What, like in a high school? They say secondary school in England. But yes, a history teacher in a high school. I think that would be a good thing to do. And Hendrik smiled and looked at me with mild confusion, as if I had ordered the chicken instead of the lobster. That's perfect, yes. Well, we'll just need to get a few things in place and as Hendrik kept talking, I watched the mouse disappear under the hedge and into dark shadows, into freedom. London now. London, the first week of my new life. The head teacher's office at Oakfield School. I am trying to seem normal. It is an increasing challenge. The past is trying to burst through. No, it is already through. The past is always here. The room smells of instant coffee, disinfectant, and acrylic carpet, but there is a poster of Shakespeare. It is the portrait you always see of him, receding hairline, pale skin, the blank eyes of a stoner, a picture that doesn't really look like Shakespeare. I return my focus to the head teacher, Daphne Bello. She is wearing orange hoop earrings. She has a few white hairs amid the black. She is smiling at me. It is a wistful smile. The kind of smile no one is capable of before the age of 40. The kind that contains sadness and defiance and amusement all at once. I've been here a long while. Really, I say. Outside, a distant police siren fades into nothing. Time, she says, is a strange thing, isn't it? She delicately holds the brim of her paper cup of coffee as she places it down next to her computer. The strangest, I agree. I like Daphne. I like this whole interview. I like being back here in London, back in Tower Hamlets, and to be in an interview for an ordinary job. It is so wonderful to feel, well, ordinary for once. I've been a teacher now for 3 decades, and here for 2. What a depressing thought, all those years. I am so old, she sighs through her smile. I've always found it funny when people say that. You don't look it is the done thing to say, so I say it. Charmer, bonus points, she laughs a laugh that rises through an entire 2 octaves. I imagine the laugh as an invisible bird, something exotic, from St. Lucia, where her father was from, flying off into the gray sky beyond the window. Oh, to be young like you, she chuckles. 41 isn't young, I say, emphasizing the ludicrous number. 41. 41. That is what I am. You look very well. I've just come back from holiday, that might be it. Anywhere nice? Sri Lanka, yes. It was nice. I fed turtles in the sea. Turtles? Yes. I look out of the window and see a woman with a gaggle of school kids in uniform head onto the playing field. She stops, turns to them, and I see her face as she speaks unheard words. She's wearing glasses and jeans, and a long cardigan that flaps gently in the wind. And she pulls her hair behind her ear. She's laughing now at something a pupil is saying. The laugh lights up her face, and I am momentarily mesmerized. Ah, Daphne says, to my embarrassment when she sees where I'm looking. That's Camille, our French teacher. There's no one like her. The kids love her. She always gets them out and about. Al fresco French lessons. It's that kind of school. I understand you've done a lot of great things here, I say, trying to get the conversation back on track. I try. We all try. It's sometimes a losing battle, though. That's my only concern about your application. Your references are amazing, and I've had them all checked. I feel relieved. Not that she has checked the references, but that there has been someone who had picked up the phone or emailed back. But this isn't a rural, comprehensive in Suffolk. This is London. This is Tower Hamlets. Kids are kids, and they're great kids, but this is a different area. They don't have the same privileges. My concern is that you lived a rather sheltered life. You might be surprised. And many students here struggle hard enough with the present, let alone with history. They just care about the world around them. Getting them engaged is the key. How would you make history come alive? There was no easier question in the world. History isn't something you need to bring to life. History already is alive. We are history. History isn't politicians or kings and queens. History is everyone. It is everything. It's that coffee. You could explain much of the whole history of capitalism and empire and slavery just by talking about coffee. The amount of blood and misery that has taken place for us to sit here and sip coffee out of paper cups is incredible. You've put me right off my drink. Oh, sorry. But the point is, history is everywhere. It's about making people realize that. It makes you understand a place. Right. History is people. Everyone loves history. Daphne looks at me doubtfully, her face retreating into her neck as her eyebrows rise. Are you sure about that? I offer a small nod. It's just making them realize that everything they say and do and see is only what they say and do and see because of what has gone before, because of Shakespeare, because of every human who has ever lived. I look out of the window. We are on the 3rd floor and have quite a view, even in the gray London drizzle. I see an old Georgian building I've walked past many times. That place over there, the one with all the chimneys, that used to be an asylum, and over there, I point to another, lower brick building, was the old slaughterhouse. They used to take all the old bones and make porcelain from them. If we had walked past it 200 years ago, we'd have heard the wails coming from the People's Society had declared mad on one side and the cattle on the other. If. I point to the slate terrace rooftops in the east, and just over there, in a bakery on Old Ford Road, that's where Sylvia Pankhurst and the East London suffragettes used to meet. They used to have a big sign painted in gold saying "Votes for Women" that you couldn't miss not far from the old match factory. Daphne writes something down. Then you play music, I see, guitar, piano, and violin. And the lute, I say, and the mandolin, and the cittern, and the tin pipe. Yes, you put Martin to shame. Martin? Our music teacher. Hopeless. He's hopeless. Can barely play the triangle. Thinks he's a rock star, though. Poor Martin. Well, I love music. I love playing music, but I find it a hard thing to teach. I've always found it hard to talk about music. Unlike history. And you seem to be up to speed with the current curriculum. Yes, I lie easily. Absolutely. And you're still on the young side of things. I shrug and make the kind of face I think you are meant to make. I'm 56 to 41, so 41 is young to me. 56 is young. 88 is young. 130 is young. Well, I am quite an old 41. She smiles at me. She clicks the top of her pen, then clicks it again. Each one is a moment. The first click, the pause between the click, and the second click. The longer you live, the harder it becomes to grab them each little moment as it arrives, to be living in something other than the past or the future, to be actually here. Forever, Emily Dickinson said, is composed of nows. But how do you inhabit the now you are in? How do you stop the ghosts of all the other nows from getting in? How, in short, do you live? I am drifting away. It has been happening a lot recently. I have heard about this. Other Albas had spoken about it. You reach the midpoint of your life and the thoughts got too much. The memories swell. The headaches grow. The headache today isn't too bad, but it is there. I try to concentrate. I try to hold on to that other now. A short few seconds ago, where I was enjoying the interview, enjoying the feeling of relative ordinariness, or the illusion of it. There is no ordinary, not for me. I try to concentrate. I look at Daphne as she shakes her head and laughs, but softly now, at something she doesn't disclose. Something sad, I feel, from the sudden glazing of her eyes. Well, Tom, I'm quite impressed by you and this application, I must say. Tom Hazard. My original name was Estienne Thomas Ambroise Christophe Hazard. That was the starting point. Since then I have had many, many names, and have been many, many things. But on my first arrival into England, I quickly lost the trimmings and became just Tom Hazard. Now, using that name again, it feels like a return. It echoes in my head. Tom. You tick all the boxes, but even if you didn't, you'd be getting the job. Oh, really? Why? She raises her eyebrows. There's no other applicant. We both laugh a little at that, but the laugh dies faster than a mayfly. Because then she says, I live on Chapel Street. I wonder if you know anything about that. And of course, I do know about that, and the question wakes me like a cold wind. My headache pulses harder. I picture an apple bursting in an oven. I shouldn't have come back here. I should never have asked Hendrik for this to happen. I think of Rose, the last time I saw her, and those wide, desperate eyes. Chapel Street, I don't know. No, I'm afraid I don't know. Don't worry, she sips her coffee. I look at the poster of Shakespeare. He seems to be staring at me, like an old friend. There is a quote below his image. We know what we are, but know not what we may be. I have a feeling about you, Tom. You have to trust your feelings, don't you? I suppose so, I say, though feelings were the one thing I have never trusted. She smiles. I smile. I stand up and head to the door. See you in September. September. It will fly by. Time, you see? That's another thing about getting older. Time speeds up. I wish, I whisper, but she does not hear, because then she says, and children. Sorry? Children are another thing that make life go faster. I have 3. Oldest is 22, graduated last year. Yesterday she was playing with her Lego. Today she's collecting the keys to her new flat. 22 years in a blink of an eye. Do you have any? I grip the door handle. This is a moment too, and inside it 1,000 others come painfully alive. No, I say, because it is easier than the truth. I don't. She seems, for a brief moment, a little awkward. I think she's about to comment on this, but instead she says, See you soon, Mr. Hazard. I step out into the corridor that smells of the same disinfectant, where 2 teenagers lean against the wall, staring down at their phones as devoutly as old priests with prayer books. I turn back to see Daphne looking towards her computer. Yes, see you soon. to end this off with, the usual. Let's go ahead and take a deep breath in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 3, 2, 1. And breathe out. 2, 3,